Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty Show. We are all back here again. It's been a while, I feel like.
The boys are back in town, bruh.
Yeah, we got 2.5 men here. My voice is still not all the way back, so sorry in advance, everybody, but I think y'all will deal. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the Giants' 26-man going into opening day. We're about what I think we figured out 2 weeks from yesterday. It's gonna be opening day.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna kind of put our thinking hats on, our GM caps, try and see if we can figure out kind of what we're looking at, based a little bit on, some comments probably in this off season, as well as just kind of how some of these battles seem to be going, how some of the guys are performing down there. And I know we're gonna give our thoughts. I think we're gonna probably try and figure out what we think the team is ultimately gonna do, whether or not we agree with it. But we'll also put our 2 cents in there as far as what we think they should be doing. So, yeah.
I'm ready to dive into that. I know I got a lot to get off my chest. Per usual.
But Murphy hasn't even played yet.
Oh, thank God for that.
I still love that, like, the first week of spring training, they start showing all of the catchers like throwing balls down to second base. And I'm like, there's a notable omission from this video. I just thought everybody should notice. And then like 2 days later, they're like, yeah, Tom Murphy's out indefinitely. I'm like, okay, that tracks.
Yeah.
So, ever since you name dropped the catcher's name from Major League 2, I can't get that image of that movie out of my head when thinking of Tom Murphy.
Yes. Hey, maybe when someone steals, Tom needs to talk about what Chelsea in the centerfold likes to do and likes to do for hobbies. I don't know.
I don't think there's any saving Tom Murphy at this point.
It's bad, but
one down, 3 to go. That's all I gotta say.
Yep. There's only a few left. But what's good, everybody? Really quick before we get going, I see Skaters in here. You won a Basabi card. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Michi, if you're in here, reach out to somebody on IG or X because you won the Patrick Bailey bobblehead. And if we don't hear from you, man, Skaters is going to also get that. So y'all make sure you reach out if you're in here. So, or if you're watching it back later. And also anybody that's watching, if you guys do enjoy the content, if you're not already subscribed, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up. We're going to have a guest next week. Next week, we're going to do our record prediction for the Giants and kind of do a season preview. Hopefully we have a better idea of who's on here or who's going to be on the roster by then. We're going to do our predictions, and we have a guest who covers the team that's going to be giving his predictions as well. So it is somebody that has been on the show in the past, so y'all can probably figure that out pretty easily.
Yeah. So, cool guy, cool dog.
Yeah.
Ricky
missed out last time. So
he did.
I know.
That'll be nice. So, all right. So let's just start putting this together. Do we want to start with pitchers or do we want to start with position player side?
Whichever. I got my thoughts for both.
Nice. And people, if you have any topics you want to talk about, throw them in the chat. We'll star them. That way, when we're done doing this little exercise, we can hop on over to whatever you guys want to talk about.
I would say I think if we start out with the position player side, it makes it a lot easier to kind of go from there and project out who the pitchers are going to be, because then you can kind of see exactly how many pitchers they're going to carry, because that kind of usually is different every single year depending on what they're doing. I know last year was a little bit funky because they started their opening day roster out with Joey Bart on the 26-man, and typically teams aren't going to carry 3 catchers throughout the whole season. So, and I don't see them carrying 3 catchers to start this season at all.
Yeah, I definitely think that one's very unlikely. There is a chance that they do roll with only 12 pitchers out the gate, like initially. It's not sustainable. I don't think it would be something they would do more than just to like try and sneak someone through waivers or whatever, I think it's unlikely. I do think we are probably looking at 13-13 is my best guess. But I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts there?
I think it's more likely that they carry 13 pitchers out the gate just because I think there's a lot of guys in close competition, and I think it would be in their best interest to kind of get these guys out there early on in the season and kind of establish roles right out the gate. I think most of the position players are kind of obvious for the most part. I mean, really the only decisions that need to be made are, which one of the two guys makes the backup catcher position right out the gate if Tom Murphy is still hurt. And then other than that, you're really looking at, I would say, who ends up being like your backup utility infielder, whether it's a Brett Wisely or a Casey Schmidt. Other than that, I don't really think there's a lot of hard decisions to make on that side, honestly. I kind of just jotted down some names, and it's pretty easy to get to 13 position players and, decide on one guy in that infielder group to kind of not make the team. And then on the position or on the pitcher side, you have, I would say, honestly, about 5 or 6 different guys that could make the final 2 spots on the pitcher side, in my opinion.
Who are your 5? Because I got a couple. I'm just wondering if ours are similar. I know Skaters dropped one that I was going to mention with Piguero. I'm just curious who else you got.
So guys for me that are kind of questionable to make the roster that it's kind of up in the air with is Lou Trevino, Piguero is another one. Lucchesi is another one. I honestly think when it gets down to guys like Sean Jelly and Keaton Wynn, those guys are huge question marks too. I think they really like having Sean Jelly there in a bulk role, but when you really start looking at the names, you could easily see him getting left off. Now, Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Sean Jelly does have another option year, correct?
I think so.
I'm not 100% sure, but
he didn't get sent down at all last year, right?
Yeah, I do believe he still has an option year. So I think if that's the case, there is a real good possibility that they use his flexibility and he could start down in the minors. He really hasn't been that impressive so far in a small sample size this spring. And I don't know, a guy like Lou Trevino, I know we haven't seen him a lot, but something tells me that they're going to end up finding a way to get him on the roster because of his history with Bob Melvin.
I agree.
And he has a really good track record. And I feel like if he was a guy that they really were unsure about, we would have seen him a lot more, especially early on in spring. So
yeah,
he's a guy I could see kind of sneaking up on us in one of those last couple spots. So
I think Trevino and Piguero are locks, in my opinion.
One option for Jelly.
How do you say his name? Lucchesi?
Oh, Lucchesi.
Casey.
Lucchesi. Yeah. I called him Lucchesi the other day.
I thought it was,
hey man, he's not Italian. And I was like, my bad.
Nah, I feel pretty confident about him as well. So those are the 3 that I had where I feel like they got pretty much solidified roles. And the whole, Jelly thing, it's like, if you think about it, with his biggest, attribute being that he can take on a bulk role, it's like I would feel more confident with Roop being that bulk role pitcher in the bullpen over Jelly. I don't think the whole 6'11" height thing matters. Like, it's what is people brag about him about, like, oh, he's 6'11". How does that help him pitch? So I don't know. I think if you're looking at just a bulk guy, if Roop doesn't make the rotation, he's got to be a lock for that. And then from there, I think, like you said, even though it seems like Jelly might be a lock based on, the relationships that he's got with the clubhouse or whatever, it makes sense for him to be the odd man out. But and then in addition to that, I don't think Beck sticks on the major league team. Our Obviously, I don't think Black does. There'll be a few difficult decisions to be made, but those are just my thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys nailed it with the position player side. Like, it's pretty easy. I'm just writing stuff down right now. And I mean, I'm already at pretty much 12 names that are guaranteed. At this point, I feel like if we just go the position player side, and I'll give my thoughts on the pitchers here in a second, but if we just go on the position player side, you've got Bailey, Wade, Flores, Fitzgerald, Chapman, Adames, Ramos, Lee, Yastrzemski. You're going to need a backup catcher. Probably Huff is who it's looking like. He is on the 40 man, so just something to keep in mind. So Huff's probably going to be the guy. And then Encarnacion and Matos seem like they're basically locks right now. I mean, I don't know how you can keep Matos off this team. Guy's hitting 364 right now. You keep Luis Matos off this team, just ship him somewhere. Let him play somewhere else because some team will take him.
Yeah.
And then Harar, I mean, he's slowed down, admittedly, in the last week or so, but absolutely pounded the ball for the first week and a half. And frankly, he did enough, I felt like, last year in the 30 some odd games or whatever he played in, that he showed enough that for a guy that's out of options, you kind of need to at least see what you got with him. And, you know, it seems like they're going to let him and Wilmer kind of just ride the hot hand. Now, I do think if Matos absolutely rakes against lefties, he's going to get some opportunities against righties. They're going to want to give Ramos a day off here and there. So he'll probably get a day off against a righty and Matos will get a day. And if he just hits, he might play his way into getting some of those DH at bats as well. So it's just kind of something to think about. But I think those 12 are basically locks. And then it just comes down to, you know, realistically, it's going to come down to, do they go with Casey Schmidt or do they go with Wisely? Schmidt's having the better camp, point blank. But Wisely's left-handed. And the team as it stands has, 1, 2, 3 lefties and a switch hitter with Bailey. So they're really light on lefty bats. So I could easily see them just going with Wisely purely because he's left-handed.
See, if it was up to me, and it's going to sound like I'm joking, you guys are probably going to laugh, but I mean it with all seriousness. I would keep both of them, Schmidt and Wisely, and cut Wilmer. Give
100%.
Give Gerard the Wilmer role. Then you can maximize the talent with Casey Schmidt and Brett Wisely. Use Wisely in that utility role off the bench, lefty bat. Have Casey in a reserved infielder role. And you've got better speed. You've got better defense. You've got better offense. You got better players, plain and simple. Yeah. That's what I would do.
I mean, and here's kind of an outside the box thought. If you keep Casey and you send Wisely down to Sacramento, if you get rid of Flores, I know you're not going to like this, Dan, but what about Wade Meckler? Throw him on the bench, pinch hit, pinch run.
As long as that's his role, being a pinch hitter, a pinch runner, and coming off, the bench in some crucial moments, I'm all for it. The only reason I give the guy a bunch of crap is because his defense is horrendous, and you guys saw that with his dive attempt last week. So, but
I'm sure I came across as so heartless when I sent that tweet out.
But the thing is, you're not wrong though.
Yeah.
Like I told you guys, I texted both of you as soon as that play happened. I was like, that is why I can't stand the dude.
Yeah.
Horrible route. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the diving, the getting himself hurt, like no one wants to see that. Like, obviously none of us are rooting for him to be seriously injured. We all hope he's okay, but it just perfectly illustrated his issues. He's been taking terrible routes like that for years. And I mean, somebody was like, this is too premature. You can't say it happens every year. And it's only he's been happening for 2.5 years. And I'm like, he's a 5-year-old college, 5-year college player. Now he's on year 3 in the pro ball. Well, on his 3rd full year in pro ball. He's played a half a year or whatever. And he's still taking these routes. Like, I'm sorry, at this point, it's a trend. He hasn't improved at all. with his routes. So he needs to get out of the outfield. But
Agreed.
I digress. It was more as a thought, as a late inning pinch runner, pinch hitter. He does grind out at bats. I think he's got value there. If they could keep him to that role and he would only like occasionally see the field when they just had to and just go hide him in left field or something, I could deal with that. But otherwise, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the speed has some value off the bench. And frankly, Wisely he's got a little bit, but he's not going to swipe you many bags or anything like that. And McRae, I think, just could benefit from full-time at bats in Sacramento. Like I think his development's more important right now. So I don't want to just stick him on the big league roster just to say, oh, you're on the big league roster, but your role is literally going to be defensive replacement, pinch runner, the end. Like he needs at bats. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much agree on the position player side. I have those same 13 counted out, or roughly. Obviously, Bailey, Huff. We have the obvious starters in both the infield and outfield, and really the only question I can see is Wisely or Schmidt, pretty much. And I just don't see a spot for either Meckler or McRae being in there because, I mean, unless you're going to exclude Matos, Harar, or make a trade involving like a Wilmer, Wade, or Wisely, I see Wisely ending up making the roster along with Matos and Harar, and then Schmidt and McRae just getting full-time play down in Sacramento. Just makes the most sense to me. I mean, there's a way you can make it work. I do believe Wisely can still be sent down for one more year.
I'll check it for you.
But yeah, it could be wrong there. But seems like it's pretty clear cut on the position player side. I mean, I don't think you have a set spot for Meckler to be up on the big league level defensively. And I just don't see a spot that they can waste at this time unless they cut the pitcher group short. And I don't see them doing that with how many guys it seems like they want to keep around.
Yeah. Yeah, I just checked. Wisely has one more. Wisely and Casey are both on their last option years.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, do we all kind of agree? Do we think Wisely is going to probably ultimately get the job for no other reason than he's left-handed?
Yeah.
And I almost lean towards McRae making the roster for that reason, but I think it's a situation where we probably see him early in the season at some point. I just don't think it's going to be to start the season. I mean, likelihood is somebody ends up getting hurt pretty early on, and then him and Casey are going to be the first guys coming up, plain and simple. And you still have Basabe down there for like backup infield depth, but I feel like it's probably those two guys for sure. And who was it? Skaters or one of these guys was mentioning that we have a bunch of guys that on the pitcher side that would need to be added to the 40-man. Well, luckily there's a pretty nice sized group that they could really honestly cut off the 40-man. Unfortunately, last season they added a ton of AAA level guys that I don't really think are necessarily ready for the big leagues. I think you got, just out of the pitchers on the 40-man, you're looking at Ragsdale, Seymour, McDonald. You even have Black in there, which I don't think they're going to just cut bait with him this early on. I think he's got enough potential to hold him.
Easiest cut of all time. That's going to come up. David VR.
So he's one of the guys
like a peanuts.
He's one of the guys I had listed just because they do have depth at that first base position. They definitely don't need him at third base because his defense is horrible over there, in my opinion. At least his arm is. So, Wilmer, Wade, Flores, and Harar, potentially, you have plenty of guys that can play first base. So him on the position player side for sure. I don't think it would be crazy to see them, drop or trade a guy like Carson Seymour, Spencer Bivens. Those are kind of guys that are all in that same range where they're kind of fringe big leaguers, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're gonna have a couple spots open up. So some things to keep in mind. I don't see any other major injuries yet, but VR is going to get moved for cheap. They traded Bart for Austin Strickland. Like they're going to trade him for something like that. Maybe not even someone as good as Austin Strickland, but it might just be cash considerations. But he's going to get traded. And then the other one to keep an eye on is Tom Murphy. There's a really high likelihood of him being on the 60-day. So they might have 2 spots open up. I'd imagine, I think we're all kind of leaning that Lou Trevino is going to probably get one of these spots. So he'll probably fill one of those like one of those 40-man spots. But, if a guy like Piguero or some of these other guys make the team, you might see that get filled there as well.
Yeah.
I agree with Big Al here. Put the best players on the field. Don't overthink left-hand, right-handed bat. The only thing I could think of is if they really want Casey to play every day and keep getting the at-bats and keep developing. Because between Casey and Wisely, I mean, honestly, at this point, I don't even really feel like it's debatable. One of them has the upside of being like a starting caliber player. The other guy is kind of battling the 4A moniker right now. And if you do want to develop Casey and keep giving him a shot to get better, especially because, as Nick kind of pointed out here, and we've talked about this on the show in the past, he says hot take Schmidt will be the second baseman by mid-year. Fitz gets giving heavy regression vibes with his strikeouts. I mean, I've said it till I was almost blue in the face, where it's not that no one here is rooting against Tyler Fitzgerald. Frankly, I hope he cements himself as like a 330 plus on base percentage guy. Really, if he does that, you're going to see him probably atop the order, and he could be a 40 stolen base threat. We need that in this lineup. But when I see a guy that makes good swing decisions, but still whiffs and strikes out 31% of the time, and then the league kind of made an adjustment to him, and he did not adjust back at all. I mean, he tanked the last 2 months. I have concerns. I mean, even you look through all his batted ball metrics, all the expected stats, all the things, and they basically scream a guy that was incredibly lucky last season. And I mean, he had that massive power surge. That was cool, but I have my concerns on how sustainable what he did last year is going forward. And I'm not ready to crown the guy. And I would not give up on Casey Schmidt. I would not trade Casey Schmidt. I would be keeping Casey Schmidt till I had to move on, because I think having that contingency, I mean, he might just end up being the better player at the end of the day. So having that in your back pocket with Fitz starting, I think is worth it. And I mean, what happens if Matt Chapman breaks a finger or something? God forbid he gets hit by a pitch in his hand. Things happen in baseball all the time.
Yeah, I'm super anti trading Casey Schmidt. I think there's too many guys with significantly less upside. Yeah, I mean, just looking at the 40 man in general, I see a lot of guys that are kind of maybe haven't got to that 4A status yet, but I just don't see them as successful future big leaguers. Like we mentioned, David VR. I honestly, like I said, I think Keaton Wynn and Spencer Bivens are kind of in that middle ground where you're kind of getting to the point where you have like 6 guys now, 5-6 guys that are that long man type. Between those two, you got Beck, you got Jelly, who are already both on the roster. You're kind of looking at a lot of guys, and Mason Black. You're looking at a lot of guys on the 40 man that all do the same thing and throw all from the same side. They're all righties. So at some point, you got to cut bait with a couple of these guys and trade them for somebody else that may be in the lower levels that isn't going to take up a 40-man spot, and kind of just see what you have there. Because like we mentioned, a lot of these guys that they may be wanting to add to the 40-man, Piguero, potentially Lucchesi, Trevino, all these guys need to be added if that's the route they want to go. So they're going to have to make a couple tough decisions, but I think there are some pretty easy ones that, I think we've seen what we've seen out of guys like Wynn and Bivens.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So All right, so I think we've kind of nailed down the position players. Now let's take a look at the pitchers, because I do think there's one decision that's going to really trickle down. That kind of changes, because you talked a little bit, Dan, about Root potentially as the long man, and I do think that fifth starter position is going to be a big determining factor for guys like Bivens, Jelly, some of those guys, because
Sure.
frankly, I don't think I think Roop is the one guy in that competition right now that if he doesn't win the fifth starter job, they will comfortably and confidently just put him in the bullpen. I mean, he was actually, I think, statistically one of their best pitchers against left-handers last season. So, I mean, he's not a left-hander out of the pen, but even with Taylor Rogers and Miller and some of the other guys that they threw that were left-handed, he was the best one against lefties last season. So I do see a scenario where they do carry one lefty and then Roop's in the pen. And he's kind of the bulk long man. Now, I do think they'll have confidence to throw him in different situations if they like the matchups. The one thing that Roop does that a lot of guys don't do, and I've kind of always emphasized this with him, he throws strikes. You're not worried about him going out there and walking two dudes and digging himself a hole. Like if he gets beat, he's going to get beat because the other team beat him. We saw it against Chicago in his last start. He very clearly didn't have command of his sinker. And he basically pulled a Logan Webb when Logan Webb's off. The sinker was out over the plate and up, and he got knocked around, but he was still in the zone. He wasn't giving freebies away. He wasn't, so that's what I do like a lot about Roop. So I think that fifth starter position is going to carry down a big trickle down, because right now, the way I see it, Webb, Ray, Verlander, and Hicks are locks. If you go into the pen, Walker, Rogers, Duvall, and Miller are locks. Am I missing a reliever that we think is just write them in ink? They're going to be on the team.
I think Tristan Beck is very close. I think he's right on the outside of that list. I think there is a possibility that they could send him down to the minors if they wanted to. But I mean, to me, I feel like he's their best long man out of the guys they have out there. Like I said, I mentioned Bivens. I don't think is better than Beck. I mean, I don't really, and Jelly too. I don't really think Jelly proved that he was any better than Beck at all. I mean, last year he really struggled with the home run ball, and he hasn't been very good this spring either in a short sample size. Yeah. So I would say, honestly, I think Beck is as close to of a lock as it gets out of the next group of guys in the pen.
The thing I struggle with Beck, and it's not his fault, because you guys know how much I like Beck. This team loves freaking Bivens and Jelly. For whatever reason, they love those two. And I just could see Beck being the odd man out of that group. And I do think that if Roop is a reliever, one of Bivens and Jelly is out. They'll probably send Jelly down because, someone brought up a good point. I think it might have been Baggerly. The one thing that Bivens does do for you, and you always need this guy, is he's kind of the sacrificial lamb. Like when a game goes bad, just for the most part, Bivens can give you a few innings. Like he's shown he can go out there and give you 3-4 innings and throw strikes and be relatively efficient. And he'll probably give up a run or two, but like, I don't know. I feel like Bivens, they just want to keep him around because when a game goes, tits up, they can just throw him out there and be like, all right, dude, go give us 3 or 4 innings and call it good.
You're not wrong.
And you always have to. I mean, Baggerly brought up, I think, like Guillermo Mota when he was here.
Oh, yeah. Pretty accurate.
And, Petit was that way for a while. And then they started using him in more higher leverage situations. But Yusmero was like that for a while. I mean, you always got to have that guy that when you see him out there, you're like, well, this game went bad.
Yeah, but to your point with those two in particular, I don't see it, especially with Jelly. Like, dude, just put him at the 5 on the Warriors. They could use him at center. I don't see him having a role on the Giants. So That's just me, but
Tom, you're not wrong.
you're not wrong.
It just, that seems to be every team always has one, and that's all I'm kind of saying there. I would rather have the best 8 guys in the pen, whoever that is. Now, a few people have mentioned Rodriguez. What do we think? Randy's on the team. I want him to be on the team, but
I wouldn't hate it, but it's a numbers game, bro. I feel like they really want Trevino in, and them getting Trevino in the pen is going to force a couple of these guys out, unfortunately.
Let's work front to back then. How about this? Well, let's start with the rotation.
Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Do we think Roop is going to be the 5, or do you think that they're going to still roll with either Harrison? I mean, I feel like Harrison's very clearly having the worst camp of the 3, and yet it still would not surprise me at all if they just roll with Harrison.
I think Roop is for sure going to make the roster at this point, unless he builds off of what he did against the Cubs. Although there's some stuff in that game that happened that I don't think are his fault. Meckler. Wait, what? No,
like Buckner. Meckler.
I think Roop makes it for sure. I think he's making that decision way too easy for them. I don't think it's anything against Birdsong. I think he's pitched really well, but I just think it really comes down to more seasoning for him. And I think that Harrison's got way too many things he's working through right now between command, velocity, possibly confidence. He had the flu bug. Whether that was part of the reason for the velo being down or not, that remains to be seen. I think there's way too many things going on with Harrison right now, and you have minor league options there. He's still very young. There's nothing wrong with that. This is not some former Rookie of the Year or Cy Young Award winner. I think it's very clear Roop is the more seasoned guy, and as far as like how he looks, he's more developed. And I think Melvin has made it very clear, and Posey coming into this year, that they want a guy that's going to come in and throw strikes. Like, that has been a huge point of emphasis this year. Throw strikes and get their strikeout numbers up. And so far this spring, they've been one of the better teams at doing that. So that's who I think makes it.
All right. So you have Root making it as the 5, not just he's going to make the team, because I think he makes the team no matter what. But I just have questions if they're going to actually keep him as the 5 starter, or if they're going to just bump him to a bulk roll.
Yeah. Here's my thing on it, my take. And it pains me to say this, but I feel like they don't want to have 4 righties in the starting rotation. And for that reason alone, I think Harrison gets the 5 spot undeserving. I think Roop gets the bulk role, and Birdsong goes to sack. That's just my take on it. If it was up to me personally, I would do very similar to what Skaters is saying. I would put Hicks in a bullpen role, and I would promote 2 of those top 3 into the rotation. And screw the matchups. I would just go with your 5 best pitchers in the starting rotation.
Yeah.
That's what I would do personally, but realistically looking at it, that's how I think the Giants are going to approach it.
Well, so here's the question, though, regarding the righties lefties thing. Does it matter in the regular season? Or does it really only matter if you get to the playoffs? Or you kind of worried about it?
In my opinion, it shouldn't matter. But I'm so traumatized from the previous regime where they were so analytic approached and matchup oriented that I can't help but think that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Gators, just so you know, this is actually not true. Hayden Birdsong threw 129 and a third innings last year, which is the highest any of them have thrown. Because Kyle got injured and gassed himself out and ran out of gas at 124. Just so you know.
See, I personally think that the righty-lefty matchup thing, I think it does matter when you're going against certain teams, and like every single team does, there's a lot of roster shuffling throughout the year. That's why you have guys with, minor league options and you don't pigeonhole yourself into certain guys that can't be sent down. I think that's one of those things where, you're coming into a series with a team that has a ton of lefties in their lineup. Like Skaters mentioned, the Dodgers. If you run into a situation like that, then that's honestly where you can just go and you can call up a Kyle Harrison, for a week if you want, or you can call up, another guy down on the farm if you'd like, but it's not something you need to hold to the roster for the entire season. You see all the time where teams have one lefty in their pen, and it's a guy that they just use in more high leverage situations and save them. You just don't burn them in the fourth, fifth, sixth inning if your starter struggles a little bit. So I think that's the route that they may end up going. Outside of those 5 guys with Root being in the rotation, I have obviously Walker in your closer role. I have Doval and Miller as your kind of setup guys. And then from there, I have Beck, Rogers, Trevino, Peguero, and I have Randy Rodriguez as your sacrificial lamb type character in the pen, because he gives you that high upside that can pitch high leverage innings at times. Now, is that really your go-to guy in high leverage situations? No, but what I mean by that is if you get into these tough situations, say an extra inning game where it's tied, and you're pretty much down to the back end of your pen, Randy's a guy at any given time can go and strike out 3 guys, in a crap situation. He can afford to walk a guy, and he has the ability to strike out the side because of how good his stuff is. So that's kind of where I'm at. So you have 2 guys on that pitching side that need 40-man spots. And then, like we said, you got David VR, and then pick one of 6-7 different guys that you could either trade or you could straight up DFA, and get them off of your 40-man.
Yeah.
And that's not even including a 60-day IL move for Tom Murphy.
Now, okay, here's the $1 million question, though. Those 8 guys you mentioned, do you think that's what they actually do, or is that just what you would do?
I definitely think it's possible that they do that. I mean,
so both Jelly and Bivens get the boot.
I don't think that's crazy at all. I don't see Bivens as a guy that's a lock to make the roster at all. Yeah. I think of the 2, I think Jelly would be the one more likely to stick because they, for some reason, have some obsession with him.
Oh, dude,
I honestly
shut out the Padres the last year Bob Melvin was there.
I honestly think he's kind of like what you said with Bivens, where he's that guy that will take the ball in any situation. He has the ability to ramp it up a little bit and throw with pretty good velocity, but he also has the ability to give you 4 innings in the middle of a crap game that's gone out of hand and save the pen. So he gives you that flexibility. So I would not be at all surprised if he starts out on the opening day roster. I think it would be a bad decision. And I think Jelly's another one of these guys that's kind of a 4A guy, in my opinion. I think he's way too inconsistent. I think he gives up way too many home runs. And I personally, I would trade him. I mean, he has a little bit of trade value. You're not expecting anything huge in return, but I would get rid of Jelly personally, or have him down in the minors for one last year.
Yeah. So Jelly actually has 2 minor league options left. Oh, sorry. No, Jelly has 1. Bivens has 2. Was what I was going to say.
Use them both.
Yeah, you can burn options for both those guys. So, I mean, to Ricky's point, like, that's what I would do. Like, I pretty much agree top to bottom. I can't think of any relievers that we're leaving off that I would include over the 8 that he listed. Like, those are the ones that I would probably roll with if it was, if I got to make the final call on the roster. To me, I don't remember who it was, but whoever it was earlier that mentioned have the best players, to me, that's the best guys. It's not it's as simple as that. Beck can give you multiple innings if you need it. Randy Rodriguez can get you multiple innings if you need it. I mean, hell, even Tyler Rogers has shown he can throw 2 innings if you need it. Like you have guys there that can fill that kind of that bulk role. Beck would Beck would actually be your long guy in that setup. Now he's shown you can throw him at various times, and he's kind of been a jack of all trades out of the pen, but he's the one that would probably have the most buildup to give you starter adjacent innings in a game if you needed him to. So I mean, I really like that pen. That top to bottom is really good staff.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And with Beck, you notice too that they just had him start a game as well. So, they definitely have the intention of trying to stretch him out and get him ready. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to make the opening day roster, but it does mean they have that in mind for him as a role this year. And I do think he's going to spend, whether it's at the beginning of the year or not, I do think he's going to spend most of the season on the big league roster in one way or another.
See, it's just tough because the Giants media likes to treat Sean Jelly like he deserves a statue out by the Cove for whatever reason, man.
It's a big statue.
If he pitched all his game against the Padres, maybe. It'd be like if Max Muncy played every game against the Giants. The dude would be a Hall of Famer. God.
Also, skaters, Christian Koss is not a Rule 5 guy. He actually, I believe they traded for him from the Red Sox system last season as like a depth move for upper level depth solid at the shortstop position.
I think skaters, I'm trying to dig it up. I suck and didn't. Oh, here we go. Found it. Schmidt versus Wisely. What about Chris Koss and Lamb? Okay, I think Lamb, there's no chance of him making the team unless we see an injury to a first baseman. Just being honest, like I just don't think.
Unless
he's not going to make it over any of the three of Harar, who's out of options, Flores, who they love, and Wade. Like he's simply not going to get a spot over those guys unless Wade gets hurt, probably.
I was just going to say, unless Wade pulls a hamstring in mid-March instead of mid-May, like usual, it's not happening.
But now Chris Koss, a really solid player. I like him as a depth piece. He's shown he can hit a little bit. He's pretty reliable with his glove, but at the end of the day, I think Schmidt's just playing better and has more upside. And then Wisely hits left-handed. So he's just, and both of those guys are on the 40 man already. So they don't require any moves. I'm double checking this. But I do think Koss has another option year. Or wait, actually, he's not even on the 40 man, so it doesn't matter.
No, he's not.
Never mind. He's Rule 5 eligible. Like, unless he opts for free agency or something, he's going to be sticking around. So it's depth, at the end of the day, that's what that is.
It's a numbers game. And he just really doesn't have a way in, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's unfortunately the politics of baseball with options and who's on the 40 man and all this stuff. It all plays a part, whether we like it or not. And I mean, it was never more evident than under Farhan, but Farhan's not alone. Every team does this with guys. They'll option a guy simply so they can kick the can of making a decision down the road and go, maybe we don't ever have to make this decision because, someone gets hurt and then we just pull that guy up. It's the politics of baseball are pretty crappy at the end of the day at times. And it's frustrating because we get situations like Jordan Hicks being gifted a starting role when he has done nothing to deserve that starting role. He's made 20 career starts, maybe 7 or 8 of them were good. And then his production fell off a cliff. But hey, now he's built up, he's ready to go. And it's like, why are we giving this guy a starting role? I mean, we bag on Harrison. And if we took a power rankings of the 4 of them in spring training, Hicks is buried at number 4.
Yeah.
And the only reason he'd even be semi-close is because Harrison had a game where he got lit up. But Roop and Birdsong are far and away the best 2 pitchers right now of those 4. And only one of them is probably going to get a job in the majors, which sucks. And Hicks continually demonstrates that he can look like he's cruising for a couple innings. He gets to the second time through an order and teams figure him out. And then all of a sudden he stops throwing strikes. He starts nibbling. Hitters lay off his stuff. And he ends up with a 30-40 pitch inning. And his night ends after 3 innings, 4 innings, whatever. And sometimes he pitches out of it a little bit, but he still is super inefficient with his pitch count, and he can't go. So I don't believe in him as a starter.
See, that's what makes that whole Hicks signing that more frustrating looking back, because it was such a desperation move by Farhan at the time, where now we were in this position now with Hicks out of the picture, Roop is locked into the number 4 spot in the rotation, and then it's a competition between Birdsong and Harrison for the number 5. And you arguably have a better rotation than you do now with Hicks cemented into that 4th spot. So it's kind of an annoying move, just kind of in retrospect.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't get me started on Jordan Hicks.
Well, and you know what? Here's the reality, though. $11 million is the going rate for like a late inning reliever.
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw, who was it? Tanner Scott. He got, $20 million a year from the Dodgers?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sitting here saying Jordan Hicks is as good as Tanner Scott. I mean, numbers don't lie. He's not. But, like, we just watched Tanner Scott get $20 million to not even be a freaking closer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give me Jordan Hicks throwing 104 in the pen, and I won't care about his $11 million contract if he's shutting down the 7th inning. I'll just shut up and deal with it. Yeah, it's not the best money spent, but whatever. I mean, it could be worse. But I cannot get behind him being a mid to below, below average starting pitcher when we've got guys like Hayden Birdsong sitting there looking like he has like front end starter potential. And we're just like, nah, you can go sit in Sacramento. Like, that just doesn't sit well with me. It honestly pisses me off, but
yeah, Kyle, Jordan Hicks has one of the, I believe it's top 8 or 9 fastest pitches in the StatCast era. Like, yeah. He can throw heat.
But you're not going to really see that out of him this year as long as he's a starter for the most part.
Exactly.
Maybe here and there, but he's not. That's going to be something he tops out at, and he's not going to be sitting anywhere close to that as a starting pitcher. It's just, I don't know. It's very aggravating because, I mean, I look at a guy like Hicks, you say take Randy Rodriguez out of the pen, slot him in that spot, and then honestly, you could use Hicks in like a role that they used Tim Lincecum in back in the playoffs after he got kind of removed from the rotation back in the day, and have him be kind of like a super reliever that can eat up middle innings on a game where you may still be in a game, but a guy comes out early due to injury or he struggles and he could still keep you in a game. Or you get
9-hitter maximum.
Yeah.
Or I mean, honestly, you get into a situation where, say, you've won a few games in a row and you've burned through Walker, Doval, Miller for a couple games, and then guess what? Now you have Hicks who can eat up 2 innings for you on the back end of a game, and you just have so many different roles you can use him in, and that's what I really like with most of the pen this year. I feel like there's a lot of versatility there. Even Eric Miller, there was times where we saw him go 2 innings, and he was fine doing that. So he's a guy you could see doing something like that. You obviously have Beck and Rogers who can do it. I think there's a lot of flexibility there, especially if you put Hicks in the pen and then you just roll with Birdsong in your 5th starter role.
And the thing is putting Hicks in the pen quite literally makes your team better in retrospect, in multiple ways, because not only are you beefing up your bullpen, but you're beefing up your starting rotation. Because let's face it, if you're looking at, the Webb, Ray, Verlander, Hicks, Birdsong, and Harrison, if you're looking at like the 6, 7 of them, Hicks is arguably your worst starting pitcher, but he'll be one of your better bullpen arms. Then it turns into one of those things situationally. Okay, who do you want to face? You want to face Camilo Doval, Eric Miller, Jordan Hicks, Rogers, Walker? Like, now you got options that are legit threats coming out of the pen. And it arguably just it makes too much sense, but I don't know.
What you mean? You mean it wouldn't hurt? It wouldn't be beneficial to throw Hicks in his 104 in the 7th, then throw Rogers in his 79 and Submarine in the 8th, and then throw Walker in his Crossfire 97.
Thank you.
In the 9th. I mean, I'm sure hitters would be ultra comfortable going through that.
That would be a nightmare for opposing teams, but for whatever reason, it makes too much sense to implement. So I don't.
And here's a thought for the front end of that, because I mean, you brought up how he's possibly the worst starter of your 7 or 8 that you're looking at here. Hayden Birdsong, and I kind of mentioned this to skaters earlier. Hayden Birdsong threw 129 in the 3rd innings last season. Jordan Hicks threw his career high at 109. So Birdsong threw 20 more as a 22-year-old kid. He's another year older, a little bit stronger, full off season, probably a major league workload off season. Who do we have the confidence in to make a jump to 150 innings? Because it sure as hell ain't Jordan Hicks, if I'm being honest. Like, I feel like we're going to be lucky to get 130 out of Hicks.
130, I'd say.
We're going to be lucky. Well, I was going to say, I think we're going to be lucky to get 130, and we're going to be lucky if of those 130, like 70 of them are productive.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I feel. Like, that's how little confidence I have in him as a starter. And you know what? I hope he proves me wrong. Hope he's watching this and he gets pissed off and he shows up ready to rock. But like, that's just how little confidence I have in the guy.
And this isn't negativity. This is just being realistic because we're going based off of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Not trying to poo-poo on the rotation, but I cannot get behind Jordan Hicks as a starting pitcher.
And
when we have better options.
Maybe I'm just delusional, but I really do think the leash is going to be much shorter this year on Hicks, though. With Posey at the helm, I don't think he's going to feel very obligated to stick to, Hicks in a starting role. I mean, he said he was going to give him every chance to be a starter. That's what he was brought here for, but I don't think he's going to feel as obligated to keep him in that role. Ultimately, if they see more of what they saw last year when they had to pull him, they just waited too long to do it. I think he'll get pulled, by say May this year if he's still doing the same thing. I mean, I have a quote here from the Giants pitching coach, JP Martinez. He said, I really wanted to recapture throwing strikes as one of the staff's superpowers. And he's made that very clear. And so has Melvin and so has Posey, because they really struggled with that as a whole staff in general. They're walking too many guys and they were not striking out very many guys. So I definitely don't see his leash being super long if he continues to do what he's done so far in spring. And let's be clear too, Hicks is in no position to be full on experimenting with stuff this spring. He was told he has to go out and earn the job. While I think we all agree that he's going to get handed that job, I just don't think he's going to be staying in that role the entire season if I had to put money on it.
No chance. And you know what, Johnny, to your point here, but it would hurt Hicks' feelings to put him in the pen so he'll be a starter. F him. Be a professional. He's getting paid $11 million a year for 4 years on this deal. He's got 3 more years under contract. If you flat out can't cut it and you get demoted to the bullpen, it's his job to be a professional. If he's going to be a cancer about it, cut his ass and move on. I am not in the business of dealing with prima donna crappy starters. Like, this team has not been good enough to deal with that shit. Point blank. So if his feelings are hurt, I don't give a damn. Cut his ass.
Cody hyped up on Alka-Seltzer, speaking the truth.
Yes.
Let's go.
I've been too sick to deal with this crap. Whiny baby whiners. All right, moving on. Oh God. But yeah, I think let's go through some of the comments in here. Sorry, start a few of these. All right, let's just kind of run through. And if you guys have more stuff you want to talk about, throw it in the chat. I think we've got kind of the 26 man mostly nailed down. Now my gut still tells me Bivens or Jelly makes the team. So I will say I think Randy is going to be the odd man out. I think one of those two guys makes the club. which sucks because you guys know I love Randy Rodriguez. The guy's got absolutely nasty stuff, but that's just my gut on that one. Skater says Ramos leading off seems bizarre. That is something they mentioned as a possibility that they might toy with during the regular season. I'll believe it when I see it, but I think the overlying idea behind it is the fact that Ramos was like the second best hitter against left-handed pitchers, right behind Aaron Judge last year versus lefties. So I think the idea is to get your best guy as many opportunities when facing lefties. Now, the counter argument to that is if you got a guy that's posting like an 1170 OPS against lefties, why don't we have him hitting like second or third or fourth and give him opportunities to knock guys in? Just a thought.
Someone also made a good point in the comments where they said it could be just trying to get Ramos more at bats in the spring, especially since, he had that oblique early on. So that would also make sense. But no, I agree.
Yeah. I would lean Fitz. Grant kind of mentions it, him or Fitz. I would lean Fitz leading off against a lefty. I go Fitz, Lee, and then like Ramos. Hit him third. Or a Ramos Adames or Adames Ramos or whatever. I that's me personally.
Fitz gets on, swipes a bag, cool runner in scoring position with the beefier lineup coming up.
If Fitz gets on and swipes a bag with Jung-Hoo Lee at the plate, I can guarantee that Fitz will be standing on third at worst at the end of that at bat. I feel very confident in that. Because
then you got Adames.
Yes, pull a ground ball. Like, yeah, he's gonna be on third with Adames up.
Adames, he can't get it, and Chappie, fingers crossed with him.
I will say if we've learned anything about the construction of this lineup come opening day, I think one thing we have found out for sure, it's that Bob Melvin was and still is never going to be confident about Lamont Wade leading off. As defensive as he got before spring training started about his announcement that they were going to try Wade in the leadoff spot with Lee in the 3-hole, he got defensive about it before spring started, and after Wade has got off to a terrible start to spring, you've seen since then they've almost completely ditched that idea. I mean, I've been following the lineups almost every day, and even when they're facing a righty, it's been very rare that they've had Wade in the leadoff spot. They have done it a few times, but they've thrown out a lot of different combos, and it tells me that they want to exhaust every possible option before they get too set on that.
Oh, but Ricky, you haven't seen Giants social media? They're all the so-called experts are just bragging about Wade's 450 on base percentage or whatever.
Dude had a 440 on base percentage and he was hitting a $180. Honestly made me want to puke. Like, be a freaking hitter, man. It is spring training.
Hey,
like,
he has 5 hits.
Like, dude had 5 hits and like 9 walks. Like, it was like, come on, man. It is spring training. Get up there and take some hacks.
He's a walker,
get
bro.
Punished for it. You're going to be the starting first baseman. Like, get up there and swing the damn bat. I mean, they were talking about Luis Matos not having enough walks in spring training. He finally drew the first one. It was a great day for the Luis Matos to try people that are trying to defend him, because the guy got a hit to right field. He got a walk. He hit a homer. Like, made a great defensive play. It was like any knock that you have on the guy, he basically checked the box today.
Hey, in the top off his day, he reposted Ricky's story.
Yes, and he reposted Ricky's story today. So shout out Luis.
Everyone follow SF Giants.
Got a signed ball, one of these two. They signed for my daughter up there. Class act. But, one of the things, and y'all know I don't always agree with Pavlovich, but one of the things that Alex Pavlovich said today that makes a lot of sense is someone asked him, are you concerned about Matos not walking a lot in spring training? And he goes, no, because this is a guy with some of the best bat to ball skills in the entire league, not just the Giants, in the entire league. And he's getting a lot of pitches to hit. I mean, what do we want him to do? Just foul him off so he draws more walks? Like, he's going to hit and he's going to put it in play. When you throws balls in the strike zone, he's going to hit them. He's hitting 364. I don't think we're in a position to complain about walks right now. But, then you get Wade up there and he's just not hacking. It's like, dude, like, this is the time to do it. I don't want to see you hitting 210 with a 450 on base percentage. I want to see you swing the freaking bat. So,
and I mean, if you're a team that's going to be in the bottom 5 of the league and hitting home runs, not saying that's the case this year, but if you're going to be a bottom 5 home run hitting team, you better be putting the damn ball in play. Like, you can't just be single walk strikeout every time. Like, you are not going to score runs and you are not going to win games like that. Put the damn ball in play, start hitting runs, steal bags. You're going to score runs that way. Situational baseball. I mean, how many times have we said that they need to drive in more runs off of sac flies and stop stranding the bases loaded with no freaking outs? Put the damn ball in play, and then let's see the results when you have a full lineup of guys that aren't striking out 35% of the time.
Yeah. And to Ricky's point, what he just said, put the ball in play and hit sac flies, get guys in when you have the opportunities, situational baseball. The other day when Casey Schmidt, his first 2 at bats came up with a runner on third base and less than 2 outs, and both times he got a sac fly to get the guy. And I'm like, honestly, put this guy on the roster just for that. Like, I am so sick of seeing bad situational baseball. And it's one of the things that, for those of you that saw the video I put out yesterday, that is the one thing they are doing right now this spring, where they are actually playing, aside from pitching well, throwing strikes, playing very clean defense, good defense around, across the field. They're hitting with runners in scoring position. They're knocking guys in. They're moving runners over. They're stealing a couple extra bags relative to last year. They're not going to lead the league in stolen bases or anything, but you can tell they have more guys that want to run. Chapman looks like a guy that has a mission to steal 20. Adames just did it last year. Fitzgerald's openly said that he wants to run like every time he gets on this season. McRae's probably not going to make the team, but you can tell he wants to run. Schmidt even has a couple bags. Ramos stole a bag the other day, and I guess Ramos was talking to, I don't know if it was like Joe Rizzo calling the game or whoever was calling the game, but they mentioned that Ramos told them that he wants to run more this season. I don't see any reason why he can't swipe 10 to 15. So, like, they're doing all these little things that this team could be better than we expect if they just play solid fundamental baseball. Like, it doesn't have to be sexy. We don't need a guy to hit 35 homers or anything. We just need the team to play winning baseball across the roster, and they could be a decent team.
Hey, that's blasphemy, Cody. We were called fake fans for asking for that last year.
Yeah. Like, do we really think this team can't be as good as the 2024 Detroit Tigers? That team won 86 games.
Yeah. And they got off to a slow start.
Yeah. Like,
they're hovering around the Giants record for much of the first half.
They were worse than the Giants for most of the year, I'm pretty sure. And then they just got red hot after the Giants series. Like, I don't know.
And, with guys like Matos and Schmidt, the reason why those guys are driving runs in this spring and why they're bringing in guys off of sac flies is because these guys are not letting other teams groove fastballs in on the first pitch and just watching it go right down the middle of the plate. They're hunting that pitch. They're not looking for, I was sitting slider away on this at bat, so I let 2 fastballs get grooved in, and now I'm battling in an 0-2 count with bases loaded and no outs. It's like, what is the approach here? Where a guy like Casey and Matos, they're looking for a good pitch to drive, and then good things will happen. You put the ball in play, you drive the ball. If you hit a fly ball and you get an out, who cares? It's a productive out. But these guys are not letting good pitches go by. A fastball over the middle of the plate, you should be looking for that. And that's why those guys are executing that. With guys like Yaz and Wade, the reason why they've been so terrible is because they're not nearly aggressive enough at the plate early on in counts. They get themselves in really bad counts, especially with runners on all the time, because they're always looking for walks. And that's always going to be their huge issue until they change their approach.
So what you're saying is the guys like Matos has a plan at the plate.
Hey, yes. Crazy talk.
To your point, though, I would 100%, personal preference, I would 100% rather get a guy that is over aggressive and try and dial him back than get a guy that is up there, super passive, just trying to draw a walk and try and have him learn to be more aggressive. 100% of the time would take the more aggressive player and just live with the poor swing decisions from time to time. 100%. So.
See ball, hit ball. Yep.
Yeah. Skaters, I will defer to these two guys on this. I do not play fantasy baseball. I don't know the first damn thing about it, so I'm going to defer to these guys. I barely get myself to play fantasy football most years, so.
Yeah, I'm just a fantasy football guy for sure.
Yeah.
I'm doing more dynasty this year, though.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got a few more on here. I'm going to kind of rapid fire these because we do want to try and be done before 10 o'clock. So McRae starts striking out less and he could be an all-star. I mean, I agree. If you're talking like gets his strikeout rate into like the low 20s, I think you're talking about a guy that could be special.
If he drops his strikeouts, he can give you what Yaz gets you and some.
His floor is what Yaz gives you.
Yes, exactly.
If he gets the right strikeouts down, because let's just put it this way. He's an upgrade defensively. As great as everyone talks about Yaz, Grant McRae would be an upgrade in right field. Better arm, better range. The only thing that he would take him probably a little bit of time is learning the winds, the judging the wall, some of the stuff that Yaz just has from years of experience. You know, that might take time, but the reality is he's an upgrade defensively. If he's striking out less than 25% of the time, I would go out on a limb and say he's a lock for 40 plus stolen bases.
Yeah.
So he's going to be infinitely more valuable on the base paths. And then if he just can find a way to get on base, you know, and if you're putting the ball in play consistently with his speed, he'll probably at least hit for a respectable average. And then if he's just drawing a few walks, you know, that Grant McRae being a little more picky and trying to draw a walk, I'm okay with that. Because when you can walk your way into a triple, it's a little different. So,
I mean, you take away Yaz's 2020 season, which was shortened, obviously, for everybody due to COVID. He's like a lifetime 230 hitter. So all McRae needs to do is just, he can hit 240 and get you 30, 40 steals and do his thing defensively. He's an upgrade over Yaz, plain and simple. And you're saving $9 million, but I digress.
I mean, and the thing with Yaz, last season he had a 302 on base percentage. For anybody wondering, the league average on base percentage was 312. So if Grant McRae can get you 240 average, 250, like, you know, if he can hit like 240, but if he can get a walk rate up over like 10%, I'd have to do the math on the exact on base percentage you're looking at, but I'd imagine it'd be pretty close to league average at that point. If you get a guy with his speed with a league average on base percentage, he is going to have incredible value.
Yeah.
Offensively. So I think there is, I think if he can strike out less, his floor is basically what Yaz gives you. I really do. And unfortunately, I saw someone ask about McRae making the team. Might've been Skaters too. I think the only way that Grant McRae makes this team, well, two ways. Number one, Yaz or Lee gets hurt. If Lee gets hurt, McRae's gonna make this team because he's gonna be their best center fielder. If Yaz gets hurt, I could see him making the team as a lefty option. But the other one is I could see a universe in which Matos performs so well that they are comfortable letting Yaz go entirely, in which case I could see McRae being on the team. But that one's a little bit more of a long shot.
Yeah, one thing that I really like with McRae is obviously just him on the bases. I remember last week pointing out to you guys, I want to say it was against the White Sox last Monday or Tuesday, and McRae was on first base, and Jake Lamb struck out or grounded out, and he was already on the move, and McRae was going first to second, and then on the very next play, he ended up going first to home right off the bat. just start of the game, first at home, run scored, easy. And then I think that was the same game where Casey Schmidt had back-to-back at-bats with sac flies too. So it was just like you just manufactured 3 runs early on in that game off of 2 sac flies and then just elite base running. So it's like the guy's an absolute weapon. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the week that, you know, McRae's a guy you would love to have if you were able to sneak into a wild card spot, because he would be an absolute freaking weapon late in games. Just having him on base, you don't even really need your, you know, say he pinch hits and gets on base like late in a playoff game, and then you have the top of the lineup up. You just need a couple guys to put the ball in play, and really good things are going to happen with him. Yeah. Very good instincts on the base, and obviously the speed's very good. So I'm a huge fan of McRae. Cody, Dan, and I have always said, literally, like you were just talking about, it really comes down to strikeouts. If he gets rid of the strikeouts, even if it means cutting down the power numbers a little bit, McRae will be a very good player, especially at Oracle. He is a great fit for this ballpark, and it really comes down to that. I mean, give him the Ricky Henderson treatment and just tell him to hit the ball into the ground every time and have that mindset instead of hitting, you know, weak pop-ups.
I want to see the push-ups come out. Pops one up, just drop and do push-ups. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And the one thing we were talking about earlier, I mentioned like a few of the guys that said they want to run more. Grant McRae came out and said, I want to get back to running all the time. And for those of you wondering, his first full year in the minors, stole 17 bags. 2021, I think he dealt with a bunch of injuries. He only played 45 games. He stole 7 bags. 2022, 43 stolen bases. 2023, 52 stolen bases. Last season, 19 between the minors and majors. And he has openly said, I'm going to start running, because he might be the fastest guy on the team. He could be one of the fastest guys in baseball. Like, the dude flies. So I love to hear it. I think that needs to be his game. It just, like Ricky said, he can be an absolute weapon. I think that there is, if he is still in Sacramento for whatever reason, developmental, they just didn't need him, whatever the reason is, come September 1st, I will go out on a limb now and guarantee that he's going to be one of the 2 September call-ups, because especially if they're in the hunt, the ability to pull him in and know we can pinch run him late, and then wherever we're putting him defensively, we're probably upgrading our team defensively. Like, he's going to be on the roster.
Here's the question. Who wins in a foot race, Grant McRae or Jonah Cox? That'd be a good one.
I'd probably lean McRae.
That'd be a really good race.
Throw Fitzgerald in there too. I mean, the guy had 100th percentile sprint speed last season.
Be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Don't forget Wilmer Flores.
Wilmer would get freaking lapped, dude. Lapped. If they did 2 laps around the warning track, what are the odds? Would Wilmer be favored to actually complete the lap, or would we favor them to actually lap him?
I can see him getting lapped, and I'm not even trying to be funny.
Like, I'm just dead, because he'd probably gas out on the.
What if you had Jonah Cox and Grant McRae do a beanbag race together while Wilmer actually just runs the bases without anything holding him back? Who wins?
Like a 3-legged race?
A 3-legged race.
Yeah.
Dude.
They're sharing a beanbag and Wilmer gets to run freely. Who wins?
Well, they're sharing a beanbag.
Yes. They're sharing a beanbag. They have to limp around the bases. It's like the fairest matchup that they could have in a race.
I would honestly pay a lot of money to watch that.
I would pay more money to watch that than I was willing to pay to watch the 2023 or 2024 Giants.
Or what about Jonah Cox or Grant McRae having to get around the bases 2 times and Wilmer has to get around once? Who wins?
I'm serious. I think they lap him.
I think so.
I do too.
Yeah, dude is just snail. It's brutal. Let's see. We got a few more in here. Joaquin says, Does Duvall have any chance of taking back the closer role? I mean, I think there's a chance.
Of course.
There's always a
Dominate.
chance.
Yeah, you go dominate.
Not anytime soon, though.
Yeah, I mean, Walker's, regardless of any struggles Walker's had in spring, it's his job. And it's going to be his job for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But as Duvall is a good example of last season, if Walker forgets how to throw strikes, or an injury, but if he forgets how to throw strikes, stuff changes quick. And I don't think Melvin's going to tolerate a closer that just flat out doesn't throw strikes again. If he feels like he's costing him a lot of games, especially if they're hanging around 500 and he's like, damn it, we're better than this, but we're giving away games late, I don't think they're going to mess around. So always a shot. That said, I have a lot of confidence in Walker. So I don't want to see it happen. Let's just put it that way, because I want to see Walker dominate.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't want to jinx him, but the reason I say there's always a chance is because I've always maintained this point. Relievers are so volatile.
Mm-hmm.
These guys year to year can be so different. And that's why, like, I'm always of the belief, unless it's your own guy, do not spend huge money on a closer, because you can always find a new closer. The best way to get relievers is to just develop them from within. Look at guys' tools and their upside and get a bunch of guys with elite stuff and develop in the minors through that way. And then just always have a pipeline of young guys to come in. Of course, sometimes you need to go and make a trade for a guy mid-season when you're in playoff contention, but relievers are so volatile. More often than not, the teams that spend big money on relievers end up getting burned. I mean, we saw it with Arizona with Paul Sewald, and then, the Giants years ago with Mark Melancon. You see it all the time. It's just, you're usually paying a guy that's already 31 or 32 years old, and they're getting right to the point of the back end of their prime. So that's my take on it. So I really do think Walker's going to have a great year. I think he'll easily be top 5 in saves this year. But of course, I did want to go back to the Benji Molina comments, though. Who is it? Harris. Benji Molina being the slowest. Put some respect on Benji Molina's name. He hit for the cycle, had a triple in Fenway Park.
Yep.
As a member of the Texas Rangers, I believe.
Dude,
So,
I watched that game live, and I was losing my freaking mind.
I will say this: the Texas announcers nailed that call.
They did.
Absolutely nailed that.
Come on, Benji.
Come on, Benji. Like, oh my God, dude.
what was even better is,
like,
I think that was
a three-legged dog, dude. It was just the funniest thing.
What was so funny though is, like, I'm pretty sure that was one of his last at bats in that game. So it was like one of the most improbable things to happen already as is. And then it happens late in the game. And then if any of you guys haven't watched it, you got to look it up. Benji hit that thing in the gap off of like the very edge, I believe, of the green monster. And it ricocheted like multiple times. The outfielders ran terrible routes. It was literally everything that needed to happen.
It was an act of God.
Seriously. It was just meant to be on that day.
See, how can you see that and not be romantic about baseball?
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Come on, man. It's amazing.
I miss Benji, man. He was great.
He was a good giant.
Great giant.
Yeah. Will we see Whisenhunt this year?
Probably.
Okay, the only thing standing in his way is he's not on the 40-man.
Yeah.
And I do think as it stands right now amongst starters, now he's not on the 40-man, though I won't necessarily say I think he's behind Seymour or Ragsdale, who are on the 40-man. Things change quick. I mean, who thought Birdsong jumped Whisenhunt last year to get the call? Birdsong jumped a bunch of people last year to get the call. So things can change. So I won't say no. And I do think there's a non-zero chance we see him as a reliever before the year ends.
I was just going to say, depending on how the year goes, if he's still on the team in September, I can see him being a September call-up as a reliever.
Yeah. I could see an August or September call up as a reliever.
Yeah.
Depending on how the year's going.
Exactly.
If they just think they need that little boost out of another lefty out of the pen, his changeup could be an absolute weapon in the pen. So yeah, I think it's a possibility for sure.
Reminds me of David Price back in the day with the Rays his rookie year, coming up as a September call-up, and then he ended up being a huge weapon for them in their postseason run. I believe that was the year they lost to the Phillies in the World Series.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So last one. What do you guys think of payroll?
They're doing what they said they do.
Yeah, I mean, the way I would put it is I will be a lot. I came out, I said it's justified to get under the tax. I have no issue with that. I kept saying that. So I'm not going to sit here and throw a fit about the payroll. Now, I think they could have operated a little closer to the tax, and a lot of us would have been a little happier with that. But I have zero issue with them getting under the tax. I think that's just good business. Reset the tax, set yourself up to be very hyper aggressive next season or next off season. Evaluate what you have this season. Hopefully have a good, decent, solid team, win like 85 games or something like that. Be a good step in the right direction, and then be ready to back the Brinks truck up on guys like Kyle Tucker or Vladdy or whoever. Like, be prepared to make a trade for a star and have that big fat contract in front of them that they're going to sign to extend. Like, utilize that room, because if come next season they do this same crap, I will be throwing a fit.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure both these guys will be too. So that's where I stand on the payroll.
Agreed.
Yeah, Willie Adames is a great start, but you got to keep going. If you guys if you're going to want to build a consistent winner, there's just not enough advanced prospects on the position player side at this point.
Agreed.
Yep.
We had somebody go in and watch it right now.
Yeah. I was like, I thought they mentioned pigs flying or something, but I couldn't remember. I just remember it was absolutely hilarious when I remember the come on Benji, and then I remember them making a comment about how miraculous it was when he got to third. And I was like, dude, hats off to these guys. They nailed it. That's awesome.
And the best part, it was a stand-up triple.
Yes, it was.
I wish I could have seen the Benji slide just for style points. It would have been funny. God.
Yeah.
He might have stood back up.
Would have been great to just see him round third and just say, screw it, I'm just going to truck this catcher.
Imagine.
That was before the Posey incident, too. Yeah. Or he gets into a pickle. Hey, you already got the triple anyways. They can't take it away from you.
He would just lay down. Let's be honest. He'd be like, I'm done. I quit.
Another guy I want the Giants to obviously keep an eye on throughout this season, too, and see how he plays out this year is Bo Bichette. He's going to be a free agent, too. So let's not forget him. I mean, obviously, we all wanted him at the deadline last year. It's very possible that the Blue Jays completely butcher both of those situations and don't extend either guy, because both guys might just be fed up with the situation in Toronto. They're kind of like how we felt about the Giants a couple years ago, where there's just like not really anything there. They have enough talent to be like a middle of the road team, but they're probably not going to go over the hump, especially in that division they're in. I mean, they're the worst team out in the East, in my opinion. I think the Red Sox have a ton of young talent. Obviously the Yankees are going to be there. The Orioles are going to be there. The Rays are just way more stable of an organization than them.
Yeah,
it's possible.
All I'm saying is imagine an infield in 2026: Chapman, Adames, Bichette, Eldridge. That is nasty. That's all I'm saying.
I think the Adames. I think the Adames signing kind of shut the door on it. But if Fitzgerald just flat out regresses and tanks, I think it kind of goes just a little bit on Bichette. So I now, granted, I don't know if they would make the trade. I don't know if they would just ride it out and wait till free agency. Because the other thing is if Fitzgerald tanks, Casey Schmidt's probably going to get a shot. And if Casey Schmidt takes off, they're not going to do it. So I think there's a lot of things that are going to have to happen for Bichette to be in play. But I definitely think that door could open up. And I mean, you guys know how much I like Bo Bichette and how much I believe that he's going to turn it around and be a good player again. That's we're going to just have to wait and see going into next offseason, probably.
Yes, sir.
So, but it's 10 o'clock. So we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We got about 100 people sitting in here. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight on a Friday night. As I said earlier, if you guys do enjoy the content, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. When we get to 1750 on subscribers, we'll do another giveaway. No clue what that item is going to be yet. Now we are going to do
Patrick Bailey jockstrap.
Jesus, used. And then when we hit 2,000 subscribers, we are going to do one of the Even Your Dynasty Show hoodies. None of us have it on right now, but yeah, I know.
I was like wearing it. No,
it's super nice. They're super comfortable, great material. I think you guys would enjoy it. Great for a night game in San Francisco. So we will do that giveaway at 2K. Other than that, I don't think
looks like Ziggy wants the jockstrap. I'm assuming that's what he's saying yes to.
That's definitely got to be what he was super excited about. And then other than that, like I mentioned earlier, we are going to have a fun guest next Friday. So be ready for that. Maybe I'll have my voice by then. We'll see, and I don't know. You guys got anything you want to add?
No, I'm good. It'll be a fun one next week.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. All right. Take it easy, guys. Go Giants, and we'll catch you next time.